welcome to another session of Leverage TV. I'm Tarunveer Singh. I'm Senior Manager at Leverage Edu, and today we are here to discuss the topic of student accommodation while studying abroad. So this is usually a topic which usually students don't really do that much research while going abroad to study overseas. Usually after the admissions, their offer letter comes in. That's when they kind of start. Students usually start to kind of look into the process of finding accommodation and deciding what is the right sort of place for them to go and live, right? And, during the time over there. So it's usually one of the least thought out parts of the process of the entire study abroad journey. And usually, I think when students, start applying for accommodation, they've already gone through so much. Usually, you've already, applied to the university, you've written your essays, you've got your offer letter, you've paid your deposit, and then now you're planning for your visa. So usually, by the time that you get to the accommodation, you really, have not really thought too much about it. So we will try to help you out today. In maybe giving you a bit more clarity on how one should think when choosing the accommodation. Why it is so important to choose the right accommodation is because it actually defines your entire student experience, right, while you are studying abroad, and students generally would not take that into consideration. It's also, like, for example, if you decide to stay on campus, you might have a very vibrant campus university life, whereas if you're looking more to sort of stay in a foreign city and kind of live an independent life in a foreign city which you've never done before, then maybe staying off campus in a city could be the best option for you. So we'll try to demyth everything today. It's also important to understand that accommodation is actually one of the largest cost contributors, right, to your entire student experience or your journey abroad. Usually, you will end up spending an equal amount of your money on accommodation as you would on food and other living expenses. Generally, accommodation is it would vary between 300. So students would end up spending between if someone is planning to study outside of London, they'll actually end up spending between 300 to maybe 600 pounds per month, depending on the type of accommodation that one chooses. So there are a lot of things that students generally should think about. Also, generally, a lot of people know that when you're applying for accommodations, generally accommodations do sort of run out quite quickly, especially if you're planning to stay on university campus. There is a fight for places, so students do need to make that decision quite quickly upon receiving their offer letter. So some of the things which I feel students should probably should start thinking about before considering which accommodation they plan to go for would be the best way to probably start it would be is to start with thinking about, like, what's your main aim of actually living abroad or studying abroad. Like I said before, if your main purpose is maybe academics, then it might make sense for you to stay on campus, close to the library, close to your halls, close to your lecturers. If your main purpose is maybe to experience a city life and you kind of want to have the sort of, for example, if you're planning to go to London and you want to have that London experience, then probably maybe staying in a residential area or closer to the city side might make more sense for you. So it really depends on what your aim is when you're planning to study abroad, right? Also, you need to consider what sort of privacy do you sort of want, because if you plan to stay on campus, and if you're planning to stay in a university hall on campus, you find that there are going to be a lot of students over there. If you plan to stay in a shared flat with friends, you may have to share a bathroom. You may not have that time, for your studies. Your friends might disturb you. So there are all of these things to sort of consider. After that, you should also consider what is your budget, right? So depending on your budget, some options would probably be better and some may not be as suitable to you. Usually, if you stay on campus or if you stay in the city, it does generally work out to be a bit more expensive. So sharing a flat slightly away from campus in a not very commercial area might be the cheapest option for you. Also, you have to consider how far do you want to live from school. So that's a very important consideration that you must consider. And how far do you want to be away from the city center? So if being in the city, if you like to go to the best bars, if you want to be be around the shopping malls, and near the tourist attractions, so that's something that you must consider as well. Finally, you also have to think about your food. So whether you want catered or self-catered accommodation. So, for example, if you love to cook, then maybe um, you know a shared flat with a communal kitchen would be great for you. So these are some of the points which generally you must consider. I personally think that location is the most important factor when you're looking for housing. So I feel that it's always beneficial to stay somewhere near campus. It's good because you don't have to travel a lot when you're going for lectures early in the morning. If you have to travel long distances, it can be an issue, especially if you don't have a car. So I think staying on campus is a great idea. Location is one of the main factors that you should definitely take into consideration when choosing the right place for you to spend your year abroad. So I'll now talk a bit about what are the usual considerations, what are the usual options that usually students consider. Generally, either students will end up staying either on campus or off campus. On campus would mean that you would be staying in university housing, and off campus would generally mean that either you're staying in a studio apartment, so one bedroom sort of student apartment, or you might be sharing a flat with some friends or with a few people. So I'll now be talking a bit about the pros and cons of each one of them. So when it comes to university housing or staying on campus, generally you will find that there are one bedroom apartments on campus available for students. Some of those one bedroom apartments may have a bathroom attached within the room, or some may not have, and you may have to share a bathroom with a bunch of students. So that is something which one suits you better is something which you definitely need to consider. That's one of the first things that you need to kind of keep in mind. Also, university housing generally runs out quite quickly, so it's on a first come first serve basis. So if that is something that you feel is the best option for you, then you need to make a move quite fast. Also, one good thing about staying on campus is that it tends to be close. It's generally on the university campus itself, so you tend to be close to the university buildings, and safety is something which you don't really need to worry about. So these are some of the things that you must consider when considering campus accommodation. Besides this, there are a lot of benefits on staying on campus. So I'll try to break down some of the benefits which I thought was great about staying in a university student hall. So the first thing is that it's a safe choice. Like, you can't really go wrong with staying on campus. You'll be close to your lecture halls. You'll definitely meet a lot of people. And it's also, it's a very safe sort of environment. If it's your first time sort of going abroad, then this might be a great option for you, because you find a lot of other people, who will be living right next to you, who have also just maybe first time come abroad, and there's the first time, this is their first solo experience of sort of studying abroad. So there are a lot of social benefits as well of that, the fact that you'll obviously be mingling and sort of meeting a lot of people. Generally, a student hall will have, anywhere from like 100 to 200 or maybe 300, 400, 500 students living in one sort of building. There are communal areas, so like there are bars within the student hall where you will get a chance to sort of meet a lot of people. Within your corridor itself, there would probably be about 10 or 20 rooms, so you will end up knowing all of your neighbors. So there are a lot of social benefits of actually staying on campus. It's something that I highly recommend if you are looking, for experiencing the proper campus life, right? Like I said earlier, it's also one of the safer options that generally people tend to go with. Besides this, one good thing about staying on campus in a university hall is that they have meal plan options usually available to you, so you can get catered meals They generally charge you extra for it, but it is quite useful if you find that ordering in or cooking in is a big issue. Then that might be a good reason for you to select staying on campus. You also don't really need to worry about your utility bills. That's something which is already taken care of. Your Wi-Fi is usually already provided to you, and you have 24/7 help desk, which generally would assist you with some things in case anything ever is required, right? Um, but there are some cons about staying in a student hall. So firstly, I feel that when I lived there, it was a bit more pricey. So staying on campus tends to be a little bit more expensive in that sense. Um, Also, you can't really make that much noise, so you don't have that much independence, and your rooms tend to be quite small. So if you're somebody who likes to have friends over, and you want a slightly larger space, then it does become a bit difficult to stay in a student hall, because generally the student halls tend to be quite small. It's usually just a one bedroom with a small bed and a table and a tiny bathroom. So space is definitely something, and your level of independence is something that you need to consider whether staying in a student hall makes sense for you or not. And also the meals generally, which are provided by the university, they tend to be a little expensive. So it is obviously a lot cheaper if you order in, or if you actually cook your own food. So again, from a financial perspective, it does make more sense sometimes to stay off campus. Um, Generally, people who like to stay, who end up opting for university housing, generally tend to be first year students. So if it's your first year in the country or in the university, generally most people do tend to stay within the university itself, and then in their second year of their postgraduate, or the second year of their undergraduate, once you have made friends, then usually people then tend to sort of move out and get their own flats and live the city life, and sort of move off campus accommodation, and you can kind of save money by doing that. um, one more pro which I find about staying on campus is that most of the rooms tend to be pretty much furnished, so you don't really have to worry about furnishing the room. That it comes with a table, and everything from your light bulbs and everything seems is working quite well, including your heating. So they tend to be quite well maintained. Um, all in all, I feel that staying on campus is definitely it was definitely my favorite choice when I stayed abroad, because I found that I was I never really had to try to make any friends. It would quite naturally happen, because you're always surrounded by people. Whether you're going for your meals to the communal kitchen where there are hundreds of people sitting, so you get to talk to people around there at that time. Or if you're just going down to the bar within the student hall itself, you'll always find people to meet. You'll always know your neighbors, and you'll meet your neighbors' friends, and it's quite a vibrant sort of social life. So for me, being a bit of more of a social person, I really found that to be a really one of the better options available, and I would definitely suggest that to most people. Um, some of the things that you should consider when you're also um, planning to stay on campus is that is there a desk for you to work on, and is there enough space for your computer and for your books and for your studies? Because like I said, the room tends to be a bit small. You should check whether the bed sheets and linen are provided. You should check whether there are any additional costs for storage and stuff, because sometimes storage tends to be a bit of a problem. The room is very small, so you may not be able to store too much. So if they're charging you per month for storage, that it might pinch you. Lastly, you should also check if the internet access and everything is sorted out, or whether there's any extra charge for that. When it comes to off-campus accommodation, generally, if you're not allotted, say if you wanted to stay on the university campus, but if you are not allotted, a spot in one of their on-campus housing, you can always contact the university and ask them which are the best spots off campus, which might be suitable for the university. So the university has usually 3 or 4 nice student apartments next to its campus, which are not run by the university, but the university definitely would be knowing of all of these 3 or 4 popular options where usually students stay. So generally, those tend to be good options for students if you're planning to stay off campus. If you're staying off campus, so usually students will stay either in a 1 bedroom sort of studio flat off campus, slightly off campus, or you could actually stay in a shared flat. So the shared flat would be where you would be sharing a flatmate, a flat with maybe about 4 or 5 flatmates, depending on how big the apartment is. So yeah, you can make your choice of whether a studio or whether a shared flat makes sense for you off campus. Also, how far off campus is also up to you. Usually, people prefer to stay off campus, just around the perimeter of the university, like I said. But there are some people who do like to opt to go in and stay in the city center, like I had mentioned before as well. So if staying in the city is something that interests you, if you want to be around malls and bars, good restaurants, then that is something as well that you can sort of consider. So I'm going to break down a little bit about staying off campus as well, especially shared housing, because I think that's usually a cheaper option, which students do tend to go for. So it's important, I feel, that I should explain some of the pros and cons that one must consider for that. Generally, like I said, a lot of these apartments tend to be slightly off campus, and they actually are proper student apartments. So you won't find any outsiders living in these apartments if they are the ones which are near campus. And so they do also have that sort of college experience feel. You don't really have too many outsiders, but like I said, it's not like you're living on campus, so it is a bit more different in that sense. But it still is a little bit social. It's not like you're staying in an apartment somewhere, where all sorts of people are around you. So usually one of the popular ways that people stay off campus is that they stay in the shared housing, like I had mentioned. But usually, like shared housing, from what I understand, it's more usually inclined towards students who have already done their first year. So usually students in their second year usually tend to go for the shared housing option. Why? It's because usually you would have already made your group of friends and you would be all wanting to stay together, and hence it makes it much easier to stay in a shared flat if you are in your second year as to your first year. But a lot of students do still go for it in your first year, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just that probably one must, probably do a check on, who your flatmates are, maybe get in touch with them via Facebook, chat with them a bit before you kind of, go for, before you sign the lease agreement, basically. It definitely is a lot cheaper. So if you do share an apartment with friends, it does work out cheaper because you tend to split a lot of the bills like electricity, utility, Wi-Fi. Also, a lot of the household chores are usually split. So if you were staying in a single bedroom apartment off campus, you might need to cook every single meal. But if you're staying in a flat, shared flat off campus, you can sort of split the cooking duties and things like that. So it becomes a bit easier for students in that sense. So like I said, some of the pros of staying off campus is that it can be cheap because you may be sharing a lot of these utility bills. You also do get more independence because you have, usually there are not many rules, around these student apartments, whereas on campus, they do tend to be a bit more strict. You can't make too much noise and wake up, the entire student hall. So these are some things which generally do happen on campus. You'll also find that the apartments are much bigger. You'll find that there's more space, and also you will get much more of an experience of sort of living with in a foreign city, because if you're staying on campus, you usually get the campus experience, whereas if you're staying slightly off campus, you may get a bit more of a city sort of vibe and experience. Some of the cons of staying in a shared apartment just generally tend to be that you might not get along with some of the your roommates. There may be fights. Maybe somebody is not willing to clean the dishes. Um, it's difficult to sort of always be on the same page. So it's good to know who your roommates are, like I mentioned before. Some of the other cons are that you may have to do your own cooking, so they don't have those catered meals. You might even have shared bathrooms, so that's something which you must check. Um, and you just generally may not have as much privacy, especially if you're staying in a shared flat, because you'll find that people may be coming into your room, every now and then. Um, some of the other cons, generally, if you're staying off campus, would be that you have to obviously travel to campus, so it does become a bit expensive to do that. And if you're waking up early in the morning and you have to go to class, generally the walk or the cycle to campus, or if you're driving, tends to be a little bit. It's not that easy, especially if you're staying in the UK or something where it is rather cold every morning. Also, your safety is probably not as guaranteed as it would be on campus. Generally, staying on campus is a very, very safe place. And lastly, it does become a bit difficult for you to sort of communicate, right, with and sort of make friends, because generally, if you're on campus, you're always surrounded by people. There are always, people hanging out. Whereas if you're in your flat, then you generally tend to just be in your flat. There are communal areas, but it's not as dynamic as it is when you're on campus, because on campus you generally just have like hundreds and thousands of students coming in and out of the campus all the time. When it comes to probably staying off campus, I would not suggest staying very far off in the city unless you have a car and you really, really want to live in the in the city. And generally, that also tends to be a bit more expensive. So I would always suggest that you stay slightly off campus. Just a couple more quick tips before I close this. So before you actually decide, it's important for you to actually, that it's important that you should definitely read your lease or your contract and make sure what is in it. Make sure you understand what the utilities, the cable, the Wi-Fi costs are, and whether it's adding to the cost or it's included in your rental cost. So it's important that you do that math. You should also maybe ask for pictures before signing the contract, so you know exactly what it is that you're getting into. Make sure you know whether it's shared kitchens or shared bathrooms and all that stuff, and that you're okay with it. And lastly, you should also understand that maybe you might need to pay some sort of deposit, so you should be ready to sort of do that, which is generally equal to about 1 month's rent and is refundable at the end of your contract period. So I think this is pretty much most of the points that I wanted to cover. I'll just take a couple of quick questions which I think people have asked. So the first question is, what is the difference in cost between staying on campus and staying off campus? So the cost difference generally tends to be around 10 to 20, about 20 odd percent. So you can make 20 to 30 even percent in cost savings if you stay off campus. Like I said, if you share a flat and you guys are all ready to cook, that definitely drops your costs significantly. Since somebody else has asked, who are some of these student accommodation providers? So if you want to know how to kind of book your accommodation, firstly, you can get in touch with us at Leverage Edu. You can also, if you're planning to stay on campus, then you should definitely reach out to your university. They will tell you which is the correct university accommodation for you. It's important that you gently choose the right student hall, because you want to be in the student hall where students similar to you are actually staying. So for example, if you're a business student, you want to be in a hall where business students are staying, which would generally be near the business hall. You would also want to be for example, if you're a PG student, then you want to make sure that you're in a hall which generally has a lot of PG students, or where the MBA grads will be staying. So it's important to talk to your university representative about which is the right place for you. There are some private accommodation providers as well. So if you are looking to stay off campus, then you can start, you can contact accommodation providers, you can contact us. We work with all of the accommodation providers. But there are websites online like Uni Lodges, Uni Acco, there's University Living. So these are all international student accommodation providers, and they specialize in this service, and they will help you with off-campus housing. The last question is, how can I arrange accommodation from my own country? So yeah, like I said, it's possible to book from your own country. You can either book online on these student accommodation provider websites or through us, or you can contact your university directly in the event that you plan to stay on campus. So I hope this was helpful to everybody who is planning to go study abroad. I know you guys, some of you may have already booked, but for those who haven't, I hope that I was able to provide some insights on how you should go about choosing the right place for you. Thank you for joining in, and do join us for the next session of Leverage TV. Thank you. Bye-bye.